I think we're on.
We are on. Okay, hi. I'm not sure how much time to allow for people trickling through from other sessions, but to everyone who's here, hi. I'm Adam Bennett. I'm a writer at Little Black Book, LBB Online, and I'm incredibly excited to welcome our three guests to the panel today. The fractional work landscape is absolutely fascinating right now. It all seems to be adding up to a genuine revolution in how businesses think about talent. And you can see that revolution embodied in the three guests joining us for the panel today. Steven Goldblat has pulled together an incredible network of over 200 independent contractors. Karina Meekley has been helping founders streamline their operations as a fractional COO. And Ellis Sone has been navigating the fractional world with remarkable insight. These guys aren't just consultants, they're genuinely reshaping how independent professionals work. Each of them has cracked the code on building client relationships that are both flexible and meaningful. I'm so looking forward to hearing their perspectives. Guys, welcome. Great to have you with us. Shall we get started?
Let's do it.
Yes. And may I just say, Adam, that intro, like your voice with that introduction was just phenomenal.
Oh, stop it. This is actually all AI. It's just it's just a program. I'm sorry to break the illusion.
If you don't already do a podcast, you should, because I would listen to it.
Excellent. Okay. And you'd be the first guest, I promise. So look, thank you very much for joining us. First of all, I wanted to do some groundwork and set an important term. Karina, when we talk about fractional careers, what do we mean when we say fractional? What's the difference, for example, between someone who's working fractionally on an interim basis or as a consultant?
Thank you for asking that. So fractional, actually, the difference is between fractional consulting and interim, because fractional isn't interim per se. So the biggest differences are a couple of fold. First of all, is it short-term or long-term? Fractionals generally are long-term. You're embedded in the team and you're intended to be there until you're no longer needed. So whereas an interim is a stopgap and a contractor, consultant, etc., is for a project, a fractional is intended to be long-term. Interims also can be full-time, whereas fractionals tend to be part-time. And a big difference is whether you're an embedded part of the team. Consultants, contractors, they're hired for a project. Even if it's a long-term project, you're external. You don't have people reporting to you. You are not on the org chart. You are not part of the team. You do something and then you hand it off and walk away. Whereas when you hire a fractional leader, we are literally embedded into the team. In the early days of Fractionals United, we were talking a lot about this. And there was actually a fractional COO who only had 2 clients at any given time. And his team didn't even know he was fractional. You know, he was their COO. They didn't know, they could book time on his, calendar and whatnot. Like there really is no difference except that you're part-time.
And that's a universally agreed definition, Ellis and Steven. Does that ring true in your experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the word embedded is probably what I use the most to really differentiate. You are part of the team. It's also good learning for the companies that are hiring you. There's sometimes a myth that like if you're part-time or fractional, you're not as committed to the company, as an example, or the success of the company. It's like, no, I'm on your team. I'm on the executive team. I'm here. I'm part of the company. You just don't need me full-time because you're smaller or you have the other skill sets there already or whatever it is.
Steven, just before we move on, what do you think of that point about like the myth or like old ways that businesses might have thought about people working fractionally in the past, whether they'd have used the word fractionally or not, people working in that way? Do you think those are still attitudes that are like prevalent in the industry you work in, or are things changing?
I think I think what the types of folks that I bring in, the fractional talent that I bring in, as it relates to the industry, I think that marketing agencies and ad agencies, when they think of fractional, they think of maybe more senior roles, as opposed to right, less senior roles. And I think what I do, what Partners in Crime does, is it's up and down the board. If it's a 3-day, when I think of fractional, I think of it's that middle ground between freelance and full time. It's a commitment that I'm making to that particular person or contractor over a long period of time, and the role will continually change. The skill set won't, but the role will, across different clients and across different projects. Right. So when I think of fractional, the way I use fractional, the way we use fractional is we make long-term commitments to a person and we deploy them in different ways throughout the year or over a period of time. So it's not necessarily I'm bringing somebody in for a role for a client long-term. We definitely do that, but it's also further down the chain. It's a writer, it's a designer, it's an account director, and I'll utilize them or will utilize them across different pieces of business and different projects.
I think an important distinction across all of the things we're talking about, or what I've experienced or seen, is especially talking to and coaching people who are going to hire fractionals. You should be an expert in what you're doing, or it should be your specialty. And so the benefit to the company is they are not investing in your development or training. They are signing up to have an expert in for the right amount of time, for the right need of the business. And so I know there's different discussions around leadership or individual contributor or whatever it is, but the way that I talk about it anyway, or within Fractional People, is you can be, a fractional learning and development leader or specialist, but you're filling the need of a role and you've done it before. And so you can do it as a part-time, and you're expected to be able to deliver in a more effective, efficient way because you have done it before. So that's an important part, I would think. I'm curious for others' thoughts.
I will add that we actually define it as a senior leadership role.
Mm-hmm.
There are others, including the FLA, that I'm a founding member, who wanted to be executive, but Front defines it as senior leadership. And I think it's important for us to distinguish, like, part-time exists.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason to use the term fractional to be synonymous with part-time, when part-time is a valid thing. If fractional is different from something that existed before, and if we wanted to grow and like, the biggest challenge we have now is the lack of awareness and understanding. Mm-hmm. And if we use fractional to be synonymous with consultant or part-time or anything that is not W-2, it is this hodgepodge that will never gain momentum.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really, really important to be very clear about what fractional is and is not. And Steven, no offense, like, it is not a part-time writer or a contractor or expert that is not a senior leader, because that is part-time and exists and always did exist. It is a part-time leader coming into a team and serving as a senior leader in a part-time capacity embedded in the team.
Yeah, I hear you. But I think part-time lacks, it's not part-time what we're doing. It's a commitment. It's being part of a team, mm-hmm. and it's being utilized for that role over time. It's, I talk about allocation of time. I don't talk about freelance or full-time. It's allocation. So if I hire a fractional writer at 30% of their time for 6 months, I'm basically buying a fraction of that person. They're doing the same thing to another company. They don't have to be a senior leader. They are an expert, to Ellis' point, of what they do, and they're bringing it to Partners in Crime and other companies. They're a business, they're a W-2, and they represent their skill and their expertise.
So isn't that just freelance? Like, I used to do that. I'm a workflow consultant. I do that.
I don't like the word freelance. I don't use that word. Freelance to me is incredibly transactional. It's it's hourly, it's day rate, it's just kind of a messy world that I don't dabble in. I make long-term commitments with part-time thinkers, you know, and I bring them into my business long-term, and I deploy them on different projects. So I've made that financial long-term team commitment to them. I certainly see that as fractional.
One way to think about it, again, just going back to the definition of embedded. And so I'm in the HR space, and I'm with a client, as an example, who is 30% of our leaders are fractional, or 30% of our workforce is fractional, because it's a competitive advantage for startups as you're growing to be able to have the right skill in the right seat for the right amount of time. And we differentiate it by embedded or not embedded. And so if they're in the team, on the team, in our team calls, going to the company offsite, responsible for goals and KPIs against the company goals, then they are considered fractional embedded employees. The level, the majority of that level is leaders. And so I think, again, it comes back to, like, there is a difference between a part-time employee who, from the HR, you know, and every company is going to define it differently. That's why this is fun, because we're working on defining it, right? And Karina, I know you've been doing this for a while and trying to kind of move the industry to definitions. But from my HR lens, like, I differentiated if someone is if someone is a part-time employee working in the business, they're not invited. They're not part of the team calls. Like, they're not part of the organizational chart. They are a resource that we use for that amount of time for that specific thing. They don't have to care about the rest of the factors of the organization like a fractional employee would. And so that's how I, from a cultural perspective, really look at the embedded part as a big distinguisher for just how I've personally seen it and done it.
And another way to say that also is individual contributor versus leader. You know, if you're a part-time individual contributor, we would not define that as fractional. You're part-time, you can be part of the team, but you're not a leader. The advantage we bring in as fractional leaders, and why we are effective fractionally, is because we lead through our resources. We have the experience and the expertise. And to Elle's point, we've done this full time, so we know how to do this well. And we're not doing the work. We're leading and strategizing and directing others to do the work.
Yeah. We're doing the exact same thing, I think, but we're doing the work. And I think that's the benefit, the value of this. You know, it's you know, as a creative, and I have a creative syndicate. I've got a group of fractional contractors that sorry, I just lost my train of thought. That, you know, they don't want to be hustling for the next gig.
Oh yeah.
They also know the pitfalls of a full-time job.
Yeah.
So we're trying to find that middle ground between, I want my flexibility, I want my lifestyle, but I want to make a commitment. I want to be part of a team. I want to be a leader. I want to be in the meeting. I want to do the work, present the work, produce the work. And I don't want to look over my shoulder and know that if this company loses a piece of business, that I might be out of a job. So they're fully accountable, and they're on the hook for what they're being paid for. And they understand that if it goes south, there's nothing left for them. Like, they're in charge of their right. Their
output. So I think it's a good.
Sorry, I was going to say the accountability part, I think we share in the senior leadership versus the way we handle fractional. And I think that's a part of hiring experts, hiring grown-ups, hiring people who know how to do their job, pay them what they're entitled, get out of their way, whether it's doing the work or delegating it. Depends on the role.
Hey, just making sure that we're going through the chat and messages.
We've spent the whole time on this.
I thought there's a few interesting ones, but there was one from Peter who I'm going to sum up your comment here, Peter. But basically, regardless of the semantics of it, how does one get started in this world was the question.
Yeah, totally. I was going to say, like, one of the most fun parts about being out on your own is you get to have a portfolio of all the things. And like at the end of the day, like the clients are going to call it whatever they want to call it. They need something. And, you know, you take your expertise and you provide it in a valuable way. And the portfolio of revenue and how you're embedded or outside or, you know, we in the HR, we're calling it HRpreneur because we're just doing what we're experts at in all kinds of different ways and making money and figuring out how to, you know, work with clients to create the most value. But I know we're talking about fractional today, but yeah, it's really the entrepreneurial piece of it. You are a solopreneur who's building a book of business, and that might look like different engagements with different clients. And it's fun to define it, but it's not the end all be all for sure.
But I think, you know, helping, what we try to do is we try to help independents become businesses. Think of yourself as a business.
Mm-hmm.
It's the B2B relationship. I mean, of course, I think we all do that. But I think, Adam, to your questions, like, how do you get into this? It's like, you've got to change that mindset of being, I'm a gun for hire. I'm a freelancer. I'm a warm body who's able to do the job versus I'm a business. This is my skill. This is what I require to be paid. This is the amount of time I'd like to work, and then making that happen, you know, meeting those requirements. So to me, it's leveling the playing field entirely between employer and employee. It's the power's out of the employer's hands, or not out of, but it's balanced well between the talent and the employer.
So as an operator, I think logistically, so if you're thinking about this, there are a couple of changes you have to make. Yes, you're your own business. So you're going to have to think about, I would definitely, if you're in the US, you know, incorporate to protect yourself, you know, understand that you're going to have to juggle time and clients and put boundaries and time blocks, because it's very different working for several and juggling that with constantly keeping a pipeline, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a very, Steven, to your point, a very different mindset than when you're 9 to 5 with one employer and that's all you do. So you're going to have to be constantly looking for work, networking, you know, keeping abreast of, you know, AI and whatever else is out there while doing the work, hopefully finding time to breathe, recharge. It's a very different kind of life, and it's not for everyone. I will be you know, frank about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
If you are considering this and still have a job, start putting up feelers and do as much as you can while you have money coming in, because the hardest thing is to do this when you don't have money. I have so many people, like Front is open to, for those that don't know, Front stands for Fractionals United, my community. Front is open to both current and aspiring and curious fractionals. And it breaks my heart how many, like, occasionally I'll get a message from a member, I really, really want to make this work, but I have to pay my bills. So I just had to take a full-time job. And I really hope someday I can come back to do this. Mm. It is hard. If you have money coming in and other sources of income, start now. Put out the feelers. I cannot tell you how long it's going to take to get that first client. It is hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the conversation is, you know, how do I get clients? It's like the first question I hear. It is a very relationship marketing based occupation. You are asking people to trust you very quickly in a very important part of their business, especially in those executive seats. And so that trust transfer is the number one way, you know, finding the people that you've worked with before.
Yes.
Keeping those relationships fresh, making sure they know you're open to it. And that's the extent of then when there's the need, they think of you in the room when you're not there.
Well, yes. Guys, could I ask you, and maybe it would be helpful for people, how did you get your first client? What was your story of doing that?
My first client was my last in-house. So I flipped into fractional with them because they didn't need me 100% of the time. And my next client was a previous CFO who went fractional, who brought me over. And And yeah, so all of my clients have come from people I have worked with in the past who could vouch for me and refer me.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. You know, and I think what started, you know, full-time jobs for years and years, got a client, started Partners in Crime. In the early days of Partners in Crime, I was juggling being an in-house creative director consultant for large companies, as well as building a marketing agency.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I was embedding myself within companies as their CCO or creative director or designer or strategist, whatever they needed at that time, and then supplementing the needs with my creative syndicate, my network, and doing work. And then it became two things, and now it's a number of things, including staffing.
My first client, I don't even remember when this was. It was many years ago, like 19 years ago. It was back when Upwork was still viable. It was actually called Elance, I think, back then. And I had spent 2 decades in the publishing industry, got tired of all the reorgs and layoffs because of Amazon and digital. Somebody told me about Elance. I'm never good at like sitting around and doing nothing. So I'm like, okay, let me try something else. And the first role I got would have now been called fractional, but back then it was just a part-time business manager for a niche publisher. And then I spent many years on Upwork just doing the numbers game. Unfortunately, Upwork it exists, but it's no longer what it used to be and is a race to the bottom.
I think also because someone mentioned Frun in the comments in terms of where they found a client. So I have founded a community called Fractional People People. It's HRpreneurs. That's why I say that word a lot throughout the day. But we are a really powerful referral network for each other. The referrals from fractional CFOs, fractional COOs in different communities in my network, like people who understand the concept and are quick to think of you. So that's just to say you don't have to have directly worked with someone to get referred. It's about the referring and the trust transfer, right? I know Ellis, she's in Fractional People. She's good people. I'm going to think of her for this because it's not something I do or whatever it is. So it's really just relationship building and helping people to understand what you're good at so that when the need is there, they think of you.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm not paying attention to the comments right now. But yes, like one of the reasons I created Fractionals United was when I realized like I had gone full-time with a fractional and came back to a very different landscape, realized Upwork was no longer viable, had joined some great operations communities and was looking for my no pun intended, else fractional people.
Yeah.
I'm not an HR person, so even if you had existed,
okay, we have two peoples, people, so it's
fine. But anyhow, like occasionally people join and they're looking for leads, and I have to remind them we're not, Steven, a matchmaker or a recruiter or any of that. We are primarily and only focused on community. That said, the best place, the only consistent way to find leads is the people you know. And it is a great place to find fractionals adjacent to your ICP, adjacent to your function. But you have to start with relationship first. If you come in there and be like, gimme, everyone will ignore you, and you're probably breaking some rules and I'm gonna have to kick you out if you do it more than once. But it's really about, getting to know people with common denominators. And then over time, like it's not a quick fix. There is no quick fix. If you make true connections and relationships, then yes, you think of someone, right? Like I've brought in CMOs and CFOs, right? It happens.
All three of you guys have talked about the importance of sort of networking and being part of these communities. But something that I've heard kind of often is that working fractionally can be quite a lonely way to work. Was that, Ellis, I'll put this one to you. Was that part of your thinking behind setting up Fractional People in the first place? How do you kind of, well, first of all, would you agree that it can be a lonely way to work? And if so, how do you break through that and grow your network?
Yeah, absolutely. when you are in-house and used to having your core team, it can be a really difficult transition and identity to come out and have many teams, but not have your team. And so the premise in terms of Fractional People was I was on my curiosity tour of what is fractional, how you liking it, how's it going? And a resonating theme throughout was it's great, but it's like really lonely. Like, one founding member, Kim, said, do you want to meet every week and hold each other accountable and like check in? And I was like, that's not like sustainable, like to actually be on a call every week. But like, I've been thinking about this community thing. So I started Fractional People that night. And it is a place we call each other our chosen coworkers. Like we are, it's our hub throughout the day when you're like context switching is real, just to say that out loud in this role where you're always switching context, but to have like a team to go to when you just want to celebrate or feel supported or vent about something, or, you're having difficulty with a client and you want someone to bounce an idea off of, or you want feedback on the pricing that you're going in with. That is what community is within FPP. And it's just, it's just a place to have your team when you maybe have many teams at one time.
I will add that, so yes, I also built Frun because I was looking for my people, didn't want to figure it out on my own. I will also say that there is an option, for those that really, don't want to do the Bizdev and the pipeline. There are fractional agencies, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can join a fractional agency. I'm actually working on a fractional collective as an experiment myself, but there are other options where you can still be fractional and part of something and lean into the work and not finding the work. So that is an alternative. You do, obviously, you give a cut, right? And it's important to ask up front what the business model is and what cut they take. And if you can set your rate or they set the rate and all that, but that is an option.
Yeah, there's also the option of like being, I know a wonderful fractional CFO firm where they're all W-2 full-time employees, but they work fractionally with clients. Yes. So if you like that type of work, there's different ways to construct it to make it work for your comfort level.
I mean, for us, it is obviously a little bit different. Mm-hmm. We're not hiring fractional CFOs, but but, and Adam, I think we've talked about this before, but like emotional proximity and being involved in other people's lives, and whether it's through a screen or whether it's in person, I just think it's important to to integrate being a human being into work.
Oh yeah.
And also like if we have 6 or 7 projects going on at one time, there might be 8 people who aren't necessarily involved in all of those projects that we try to include in the work, so they can celebrate it with us. They can see what else is going on as if they're part of the company, mm-hmm. as if they're part of the whole thing. So they take pride in being not only part of the company, but they take pride in, maintaining or retaining that seat within the syndicate, knowing that they will be relied upon soon, even though it's not necessarily this week, next week, or the week after.
Mm-hmm. So you're creating that team for them.
100%. Mm-hmm. And I'm pulling them in when necessary. They're being paid on mm-hmm. an ongoing basis, but it's just not right to put them in right at the moment. Yeah. But they're still part of the team. They're still part of the whole team, and they might be doing work for other companies in other places, so their allocation is split between 2 or 3 companies. Mm-hmm. But for us, they're part of this, this true collective.
Yeah. And I will, sorry, Adam, I know you want to move on. I just want to add one thing. I will also say, like, because of the embedded nature of fractional, I don't want it to, like, you still very, I'm a fractional CPO at a company, and I'm very much a part of that team, that executive team. They are like very much a team to me. And so I don't want it to make it seem like you're not in teams, because you are. And that's one of the beauties of being embedded, is you still feel like a part of that company versus maybe just being a consultant on the outside who's, not in the banter and in the day-to-day. So it's the best of both worlds in that way. But when you have clients where, you're maybe not as involved, then, and you're building your own business, it's hard to articulate what that is, even to your like friends who are in-house and don't really even understand it either. So that's where I think Karina and I similarly trying to find your people who just like get it. They understand what you're building.
Exactly. Like, yeah, as a fractional COO, most of the team report to me. Like, I'm very embedded and involved.
Yeah.
But I just wanted people who understood, like, we're not W-2, we're not consultants, we're kind of this weird in between, best of both worlds. But yes, I wanted others who got that.
Steven, I wanted to put a question from Caroline or Carolyn, apologies if I've said that wrong, to you about, she'd love to hear what size clients are most actively using fractional hires. Is there a typical size of client that you find yourself working with?
The short answer is no. The long answer is definitely not. I think
one word to 2 words.
Well, the long answer is twice as long. I mean,
twice as long.
Yeah. Listen, we've been agency of record for Smashburger for the past 2 years. Bank of the West was a long-term client. We're working with Rabobank right now. Pebble Beach, the Bay FC, the women's soccer team in the Bay Area.
Cool.
A new drink startup that's coming out of the East Bay. It ranges from a company called Hexagon that's based in Sweden and Milan. So we do global stuff, and we do very, very local stuff to startups to.
But that's healthy, isn't it? I mean, I think if I was to ask that question to a, let's say, traditional creative agency, I think they would give me the same answer about the diversity of their client base.
100%. And we're looking to work with companies that understand what good work is, that understand what smart thinking is, that want to get to the answer quickly, that don't want to spin, they don't want layers of hierarchy, and they don't want people that they don't need a 12-person team. They need a 3-person team or a 4-person team to manage their business. So what we try to do is surround them with 3 senior people, and then supplement with an outer ring of experts that come in to do what needs to be done. So in their mind, we look no different than any other ad agency, marketing agency, or strategy company out there. The way we handle, the way we manage, the way we pay is just entirely different.
So to answer that from like the typical fractional who's coming in as a person and not as a team, although there was recently someone posted in the community an article from Forbes about like larger companies starting to look at fractional, I would say that typically it's SMB startups and scale-ups that find us the most advantageous, and we're like the force multiplier for them. And as my marketing friends have taught me, even though we can work across all sizes, we want to, the more particular your niche and ICP are, the more memorable you are. So I've worked across all industries, but if someone asks me, who I'm a fractional COO for now, I say professional services and SaaS, 10 plus employees. Like the more particular you are, the more memorable. So I think everybody needs to target 1 or 2 and just start from there.
Yeah. And I think like something that in the HR field, my background has organizational design in it. And so these conversations are really we're talking about like organizational design and companies thinking about the custom fit workforce. And so the beauty of that is you are smarter with your dollars, and you're bringing in people, who can help you get from A to B in the most efficient way for, again, the right amount of time at the right price. And so yes, to what Karina said, for sure, around the, startups or small businesses being the more typical client. And, there's a lot of people in FPP who are working for mid-sized, larger clients because they maybe have a mix of an executive team where it's okay to have a 20-hour-a-week CHRO because the other skill sets are in other roles. And so it really is dependent on the company in that moment and what they need and where the skill gaps are, and then fitting the fraction of the person, in there. But yeah, the high growth, like see around the corner, kind of typical, where they shouldn't pay for a full-time chief people officer who has this level of experience, but by paying for, a fraction of the price for a fraction of the time, they get ahead that much faster because you've done it before and you can help.
I mean, the good news is that all different size companies are thinking differently about hiring.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I think that's sort of the headline, and that's what sort of drove all three of us to this place, is that there's a big shift that has happened, that full-time staffs and, people are, not only are they thinking differently about it, there's just a huge benefit to it, to not whether it's not committing to one person long-term, but it's taking your time. It's trying things out. It's, turning the dials. It's being more in control of it and not just following a playbook that was written years ago.
It's really a win-win on flexibility on both sides. Flexible for the employer, flexible for the fractional. Yeah.
So that article I mentioned linked to another article in the Times that had a term I hadn't heard of: fractional twinning. Apparently, large companies are looking to fractional execs to twin or like shadow with an in-house exec. And I'm like, okay, that's a new term, but they're thinking of fractional, so yay.
Like job sharing?
Not really. It's more
like advisory.
If you have a full-time CEO, you don't need a full-time COO, or you know, like if that kind of thing where like you can tag team and one can be fractional of the other is full-time. I skimmed the article. I didn't read the whole thing, but I'm like, okay, that's a new term I haven't heard of.
Yeah. I love all these terms. Yeah.
Hey, before we wrap up the session, this session was is building a strategic fractional career. So we spoke a bit earlier about finding those revenue streams that get you off the ground and keep you in business. But I wanted to ask you guys, and Karina, I'll start with you on this one. When is the right time to say no to a prospective client?
Good question. And I still remember the first time I said no and how liberating it was. So as a fractional COO, I don't do proposals. I do two-way interviews because I need to make damn sure that the CEO is going to let me do the job they're hiring me to do and truly partner with me and enable me. So it is a two-way conversation. And there have been 2 times that I can remember that I've walked away because I could tell, I'm not going to go into details, but I could tell this wasn't going to work. And both times I actually needed the money, but I knew that taking it would be worse, than not. And it's one thing if it's like workflow consulting, I'm less picky, right? If it's a project, I'm less picky because I do something and I leave. But if I'm being hired to run the team, to build the team, to optimize, like I need to be able to do my job and have a partner that trusts me to do it and get out of my way. And if I don't feel that, I'm not going to take it on.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just going to say that I would say the exact same thing. It's a gut check. And if they're asking you to pitch, we don't do pitches. If they're asking you to pitch, it's just a bad way to enter a relationship. That's all I'd say. Yeah,
I was in a discussion about this the other night, and it ended on vibes. Like it's all about the vibes. And then I would add, a lot of conversations have ended in me, knowing or recognizing I'm not the right person for that. Right. So that happens more often than not. And then I refer it to someone else. Or when you are talking to a founder where you just know that they need full time, that like it's a really enticing to think about being able to hire someone for half the cost. And then through the conversation, you recognize like, this is going to be scope creep real fast. And like, you need full time.
Yep.
And then again, helping to find them someone. So always finding them the solution, if it's not me, but more often than not, they come with a different need. And then as we talk through it and we look at the resourcing and the design, maybe it just isn't the right fit.
Yeah, I want to say yes 100% and add to that not, definitely for COO, no two COO jobs are alike because we complement the CEO, but I'm sure across other functions there's similarities. Know your strengths, talk about what they need, see if you get along communication style. If like I've learned the hard way, like if the COO job requires growth, I'm not a CRO. Like I'm not the right person for that. You know what I mean? So know what your strengths are, know when you can do a job well and want to do it.
And I'm so sorry to say on that note, I'm looking at the clock and we've run out of time. That was a brilliant session. Thank you all so much. And I hope everyone has gained some practical insights into building a strategic fractional career. I'm going to hand over to Kim, who's popped up very helpfully to allow me to do that. Thank you, Kim.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you, Adam.
you all so much.
Thanks, Adam.
guys.
Thanks, Steven and Karina.
Yeah, thank you guys. Great to meet.
Kim's like, I'm here. You're done. Get out.
Active panel. I hate to cut it off. So thank you guys. I did just want to let everybody know that our final keynote for the session is right now, actually. So hop on over to Why Independent is the Future. And then also just wanted to call a note to the fact that these 2 days have really been around insights and learning. And starting on Monday, Lettuce is putting out a solo challenge, which is all about then putting it into action. So we'll be working with our partners to send out daily tasks, templates, toolkits, everything you need to really take this amazing advice that we're getting and help you move your business forward one step, one day at a time. So look for that to come.
Awesome.
And if you're interested in Lettuce, please use Solo VIP. We're giving everybody 1 month off. Plus, if you're still working on tax returns for 2024, we can do that for you as well, complimentary. So that's the offer. Again, thank you for everybody's time. Speakers, you were all amazing. Head over to the keynote. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good rest of the day.
Bye.
You too.